A question. Why split this video into two parts? Well, because we're not just ranking or naming the fight scenes in a crappy countdown video with some Linkin Park playing in the background. No. I wanted to explain why I love each of these fight scenes and give each one enough time to get my message across and say what I wanted to say about that particular fight scene without making the video longer than what is my usual forte. I mean, a 30-minute video? No thank you. Do you know how long it takes for my laptop to render a 10-minute video in 1080p at 30 FPS? About 5 hours. So yeah, I don't want to overwork the piece of junk to render a 30-minute video for 15 hours straight. So I came up with the answer and split the video into two parts. Exactly, none of you asked me that question, but I told you anyway. I'm sorry if I sound like this, but it's been a long couple of days and I am beat. Now, since you're watching this video, I assume you've already seen part 1. I mean, nobody just goes straight for the part 2 without watching part 1. That is how the usual order of things goes. 1 comes before 2. I feel like I don't need to go through all the rules again. I mean, I know the deal, you know the deal, let's just move on with the video. And if by any chance you haven't seen part 1, you can check it out right here. Now, we're picking this list right where we left off, so leave a like, it helps, or so I've heard. Also, if you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell. I upload weekly, or I try to, and if you really want to see more content like this, consider subscribing. Now, on to the video. First up, we got Flying Snow versus Moon. Hero. Now, before getting to the fight scene, I want to talk about two things. One, the film itself. Hero is an amazing film, in which different characters recount the same series of events, albeit with drastically different details, with each retelling having a completely different tone. That was a color pun, in case you didn't notice. Now, since these events are being told through the perspective of different characters, they are meticulously crafted to appear very dreamlike and ethereal. I mean, the whole film has this general sense of serenity that you feel all throughout the runtime, which is a behemoth of an accomplishment on the filmmaker's part, considering it's a story about an assassin who wants to kill the ruling king because his whole village, including his parents, were killed in the wars waged by the king. Not exactly a picture of peacefulness and serenity. And 2, wire fu, which is a staple of Chinese action movies. If gone wrong, it can be hilarious, but when used just right, it can yield some pretty awesome results. Now, on to the million-dollar question. Why do I love this fight so much? Well, for one, this fight is completely character-driven, and the events leading up to it, which I would not spoil, directly affects the mindset of these characters. And that mindset of the characters directly affects the way the fight takes place. Flying Snow, who's about had it with all the bullshit, stays calm and composed, albeit a little sad during the fight because she's done what she's done, without getting into the spoiler territory. And Moon, who wants vengeance for what Flying Snow has done, is willing to confront a martial artist who's way better than her. If she weren't angry, she might have, perhaps, somehow had a chance. But her anger just makes her completely vulnerable. Funny thing is, she knows this, but still she keeps coming on to her opponent with the intent to kill, in the hope that she might actually pull it off and have her revenge. Flying Snow also doesn't kill her immediately, perhaps because she enjoys her suffering, because Moon had direct involvement with what was tormenting Flying Snow before she did what she did, which I'm not going to spoil. I know it sounds confusing, but bear with me. What's amazing about this fight is that despite the general sense of gloom and somberness thematically, not visually, the scene maintains its atmosphere of serenity and peacefulness. And the wire fu just adds to the ethereal and dreamlike visuals of the whole scene. And don't even ask me about the color palette. Seriously, don't ask me about the color palette, because that's gonna take us a lot of time. Hero is a film that went under the radar of a lot of people. And if you love films and good filmmaking, you owe it to yourself to watch this film. Do you know who convinced Miramax to release this film in American theaters? Quentin f***ing Tarantino. Yes fam, it comes with the seal of approval of Quentin f***ing Tarantino. And speaking of Quentin f***ing Tarantino, at number 2 we have Beatrix Kiddo versus L Driver. Kill Bill Volume 2. Did you see that segue? Flawless. My original choice for this list was the Oren fight from Volume 1, and no doubt that fight is more than worthy of being on this list, but after thinking about it long and hard, I finally chose the L Driver fight, although I don't consider the Oren fight to be lesser by any means, but I like this one more. One of the reasons is that this fight has more perspective. Not only do we know the bride and understand her quest for revenge better than ever, we also have the privilege of knowing L for the longest time than any of the bride's other targets. Now add to it the history these two have with Pai Mei, and you got yourself a fight that has a lot more perspective than the Oren one. As for the choreography and the execution of the fight, I love the fact that they're fighting in a cramped trailer, and how Beatrix doesn't let L draw her sword, and how Bud lies about selling his sword, and there's a perfectly good Hanzo sword just lying around, and how Beatrix taunts L about Pai Mei snatching her eye out, and how L reveals that she already murdered Pai Mei. Perspective again, and how Beatrix doesn't just straight up kill her, but blinds her by snatching her eye out just like her master, and leaves her in her agony. And most of all, I love how filthy and campy and 70s it is, which is in complete contrast to the Oren Ishii fight, which I keep coming back to because deep down I am a filthy fucking weeb. At number 3 we got Gray vs. Cirque. Upgrade.
Oh god, dude!
Upgrade is a 2018 cyberpunk/horror film, which is fairly new compared to the rest of the movies on this list. At the time of its release, it was known as the low-budget Venom ripoff, and a lot of us ignored it because of that. However, in reality, it is loads better than that steaming pile of hot manure. The film follows Gray, who gets paralyzed after some very well-dressed muggers beat him and kill his wife. He's then implanted with an AI chip stem which lets him control his body again. Then, following some clues with the help of his AI companion, he makes his way to the house of one of the perpetrators, and the following fight scene ensues. Having zero combat experience, Gray straight up gets melly-whopped. That's when Stem asks permission to take control of his body.
Permission granted!
Thank you.
What follows is a funny, brutal, and most of all, an original fight scene. If you can even call it that. I mean, it's more of a beatdown rather than a fight scene. The choreography, the way Gray's facial expressions don't match the movements of his body, the camera movements which perfectly capture the disorienting feeling of having your body controlled by your AI companion. And before you ask, no, I haven't personally experienced having my body controlled by my AI companion. The camera work sells me on it. And of course, the final kill, which is just come together perfectly, which make this scene stand head and shoulders above many similar ones, especially any scene in its so-called direct competition, which in my opinion, if you don't already know, is a steaming pile of hot manure. And that, my friends, was probably the longest sentence that I have ever said all throughout my life. At number 4 we got Nameless vs. Sky. Hero.
武功琴韵虽不相同，但原理相通，都讲求大音希声之境界。
Come on people, Jet Li fighting Donnie Yen, what more do you want? Next fight, and nah, I'm kidding, I'm gonna talk about this one. And I'm not cheating, by the way, by putting two fights from the same movie in the same list, because there was no such rule for this video. No, but really, this fight is completely different from the other one. Thematically, visually, and in its execution. Rather than a graceful ballet, a wire fu, this one features a lightning-fast display of excellent weapon work by the two masters. Also, in the context of the film, the two fighters have mad respect for each other rather than anger and hatred. Oh, and the fight takes place inside the minds of the fighters. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, and it is weird, but Hero is a film in which such a concept works perfectly. In fact, there are a lot of weird scenes and concepts that actually make sense within the scope of the film. You know how certain forms of expression in literature don't work in prose? They might even come off as as cheesy or over the top, but they work perfectly fine in poetry. That's why poetic expressions are, for the lack of a better word, absurdly exaggerated. Look, I'm not a literature guy, and this is the best way I know how to explain what I'm trying to say. So just go with it. Now, if a film, for example, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or Drunken Master 2 is a piece of prose style of writing, then Hero would be poetry. That's what I've been trying to say for so long, that this film is the visual rendition of your model poetic expression. That's more than enough literature for me for one day. So for the love of Shakespeare, watch the damn film. And finally, we have Rama versus the Assassin, The Raid 2. The Raid Redemption and The Raid 2 get high praise in the West despite coming from a rather unknown film industry, the cinema of Indonesia, and rightly so. The films are action gold mines, and on top of that, they came out at a time when action in Hollywood was, well, let's just say, not at its best. This scene in particular has been talked about a lot, from its cinematography to its action design to its use of dark costumes against a white background to the talent of the fighters themselves. Everything has been explored and analyzed, and everything is amazing. But I want to talk about how I view this scene. I see it as a test of endurance for our fighters, especially our protagonist. Before this fight, he's been through a lot. He's been in a car chase, in a fight in the car chase, then he defeated a bunch of low-level thugs, then the Hammer Girl and the Baseball Batman, both of whom were not easy opponents to beat. Then he goes to the next room and we see the assassin just standing there, calmly waiting for the beaten and battered Rama to make his way to him. On seeing him, he, without saying anything, gets ready to fight him. I'm not gonna break the rest of the fight because I want to take my sweet time with this one and the other fights in the Raid movies, so I'll just end it here and add another idea to the list of my potential future projects. And that, ladies and degenerates, is it for today. Leave a like if you liked this video. Also comment down below if you agree with this list. If you're new to the channel and want to see more content like this, smash that subscribe button, hit that subscription bell. I will see you all next time. Until then, see ya.
I think the girls with their nails done now.